Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of She Rises live speaker series. As you know, I am your host, Kelly Boyer, and I am also the founder of She Rises Foundation. And I also help mentor women through my Clarity Method. And I'm super excited to have all of you here, and I love everyone who keeps showing up week after week because the heart of She Rises is just, it really is just so simple. It is here to help women just rise into their feminine leadership, really start trusting their intuition, and just create meaningful change, not only in their lives, but in the communities that they're in. So these conversations is a beautiful space just for that, where we bring in voices that just remind us that of everything that is possible, and when we lead from truth, and we are able to really uplift and support one another. And today's guest is Alana Heim. I'm sorry, Alana, I have to laugh about that. So, because of what you said earlier, I think it's adorable. Anyways, sorry. It was a conversation that we had prior before this starting, but I would like to introduce Alana Heim. Alana Heim helps others align their energy, intuition, and strategy to create true prosperity, blending human design, gene keys, and Atlantean wisdom, and she guides holistic abundance and ascension. And our topic today is remembering to harmonize the masculine and feminine, which I love because I think this is a topic that that we know about, but I'm really ready to dive into the nitty-gritty of it so that we have a true understanding of how masculine and feminine energy works within the universe and within ourselves. So sit back, get your coffee, get your tea, get your water, whatever it is that you need, open up your heart space, and we are going to dive in to remembering to harmonize the masculine and feminine. Hi, I'm so excited to have you here. I have to tell you, when I saw your topic and then looked at everything that you're about, I got so excited because I'm like, ooh, human design, ooh, gene keys. So I'm super excited to have you here. So welcome.
Yay. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here too. And it's fun that it's like live and familiar faces and others here. So, yeah, we'll just have a great conversation from the heart and pulling in all these pieces to help us because there's so much changing on the planet. There's just a lot going on. And sometimes I think if we get in our head or we get into, especially these old masculine ways that have been on the planet, it just feels harder than it should be.
Extremely heavy. This morning when I was sitting in what I kind of call my quiet time, I can feel the heaviness, but I also can feel the optimism of it wanting to start to balance out or starting to create change. So I love that we're talking about masculine and feminine today because I feel like that's really what like what you're talking about, like kind of the heaviness of the masculine, because we've been in that energy for so long. And it's almost like I can feel the feminine really trying to start to rise up. But we can't just throw out, masculine energy like the baby with the bathwater. We have to also understand what feminine energy is and how to balance that. So I love that that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to kind of hand it over to you to just, what is your perspective on that? Like, what messaging do you have to share about how to really get into balance and harmonize with that?
Yeah, and there's so much here. And I just want to start by saying I actually come from the financial industry. So my background is being a certified public accountant and financial planner. And let me tell you, it's a male dominated masculine energy world, right? And even in that context of finance and money, and really it's currency. And so those terms, very different. But if I say that, you can already feel one is more masculine, one is more feminine. And yet I want to speak more in terms of harmony rather than balance, because balance, we start to see the teeter-totter and we think, oh, it's like Libra and like let's find balance here and have our energies. But I want us to see it as the harmony, as the unity that's coming in, whether you want to even say the yin and yang, because it's both parts of the whole. And
Mhm.
so the world being constructed in a masculine way. I also look at it as more left brain, right? We have more of our logic. We have more of our systems, more of the structure, more details. And they have played a role and they still will. But I also am somebody who comes from this place of multidimensional and, remembering lifetimes. And I know there's this deep knowing inside of coming from even Atlantis, we were heavily masculine. But then if you remember Lemuria, they were heavily feminine. And this is our time in humanity to finally get it right, if you will, and harmonize and bring both components, which we've never done. And so it's not just logic and masculine and head and then heart and emotion and intuition, but it's being all of it. And it's not necessarily gender, right? And we have all kinds of gender conversations and things changing on the planet. But when you're cutting out a part of you, you are essentially saying, that is not me, but it is, and it's all of it, right? So you can't say, I'm not masculine being this woman, or I'm going to rise up and be in a masculine world as this feminine. I have to actually bring both. And I think as a humanity, we're not very well versed in this. Our heart is guiding us, but at the same time, our head can jump in and say, you have to pick one or the other. And I see it for males. They have to bring in their feminine as much as, yes, we've already been stepping into our masculine, but doing it the masculine way rather than the feminine way. Right. So there's just like all kinds of stuff for us to bubble up and talk about, because there's just a lot of the separateness that is part of this dynamic too.
Yes. Well, I love that you describing it as a way to harmonize. And when you were saying that, like the vision that I was getting was like this is like this beautiful dance, right? That we need to that we're doing, because like when I think of dance, it's not that we're standing in one space. We're moving, we're flowing, we're going back and forth. And I do believe that there is a time when stepping a little bit more into that feminine is important, and vice versa with masculine energy. But I feel you're really talking about is the polarities of masculine and feminine. I kind of agree with you. Like I don't feel, nor do I think that we've ever actually, I mean, maybe we've attempted, and I shouldn't say that, but like, I don't feel like we've ever actually have found the middle ground, right? The integration, the proper integration of the two, which is that harmony. And
Yeah.
so I love that you said like now is the time that we get another chance to do it right. Because the moment you said that, to me, that's very exciting because I'm right there too. I'm like, okay, it's almost like third time's the charm, let's do this. So I really do love that. And the last thing that I want to point out, because I think there is confusion that people, when they think of masculine and feminine, they align it with male and female, and it has nothing to do with gender. It has everything to do with energy. And every single one of us has both inside of us. So I love that you're just coming right out of the chute and you're like, here it is. But the thing that really caught my attention was you talking about Atlantis and Lemuria. And
Mhm.
so I would love to dive into like the description of the masculine parts of Atlantis and the feminine parts of Lemuria. And I don't know, maybe how they missed their mark, because I think that's important for us to understand so we can do it the right way this time.
Right. And plus these are histories that are his story.
Mhm.
Like, but nobody remembers, but nobody knows, because our society deems this as a fairy tale. And to
Mhm.
me, all fairy tales are reality. Like this is where any movie, any book, anything that is created, we've already lived before. So
Mhm.
I remember more Atlantis and can remember that. And there's far too many parallels that I can see in our current world, where sometimes I would see it and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I remember this, or I know we did this before. And these
Mhm.
are the kinds of things that sometimes you hear it in passing. And if you think back to, when was the first cloning of the sheep? Was that like in the 90s or something?
For some reason, I want to say it was like yeah, like early 90s.
Yeah,
Because
like
I
Dolly the
remember,
sheep or something.
yeah. Oh, Blair says that yes, I think so. Yeah, that's about the time that I remember it and thinking, oh, this is so bizarre.
Because the moment it actually hits the public, it's already been around for a lot longer. So I see it the same way in movies. If the movie's finally showing you this potential outlier, like extremely crazy idea, it's already here. and and that's how our reality works, right? We're all creation, and that's the start of really the law of gender anyway. And it comes, usually we're said it's coming from this masculine place. And I look through the human design, the gene keys, using the Chinese I Ching. That first hexagram is 6 yang lines, right? It's all masculine because it's the creative force.
Yeah.
And we really had that creative force in Atlantis. We could create anything. We had that ability. We had that in our DNA. We lost those powers. That's why we can't do these things. And now we dream of being a superhero, but we could come together, and you and I be like, oh, what would it be like if we decided to put a man and a beast together, and like clone, but also splice and change things. And so whether you watch Narnia or read the book, like there's those moments where it's like, that's what we did. That's what we created, because anything was possible. And at some point, we also kind of got that greedy energy of we want more. And so for my lifetime, what I really remember is being at the end point of being at the fall and having a council and us really working to hold the grids and hold the energy together. And we just couldn't, because we had done far too much to reverse it. And
Mhm.
so if we look at that perspective of the masculine, we did have that warrior energy. We had that creative, forceful, penetrating energy. We just really were like, what can we have and what can we take and what can we do? Right? There was not always the being and the flowing and the waiting. And, it was just like more, more, more. And sometimes I see and feel those parallels. And I bring up Dolly the sheep because there is a part of me that knows we're cloning. We've been cloning. And some people will hear those myths or, conspiracy theories or whatever. But it's more, what do you know inside of you? Like,
Mhm.
are there really just doppelgangers in the actor world? Or is there more? And are the people that present to us part of the illusion, part of the movie of the Matrix we're in, to
Mhm.
constantly keep us still stuck in some of these forceful, pushing, masculine type ways?
So let's go back to cloning because I do believe that that is what that's what we're doing, right? But I believe that like and this just came in, so I don't know if I believe it yet, but like I could feel it like coming in, is that I feel like you are correct that that we ourselves as we are moving even through this lifetime are like we are cloning ourselves is kind of how it came in versus like I'm gonna say kind of like the literal cloning of like Dolly the sheep.
Mhm.
I forgot her name, so when you said, I was like, oh, that's right, it was Dolly. But I don't know if that makes sense because I was just kind of getting this idea that like moment for moment there is like a cloning process that is happening with us. And everything's happening here in the here and now, past, present, future. It's all parallel. So I'm like, like I said, I haven't quite put it together yet, but I'm just gonna say that's just what came in because it kind of like sparked this thing for me.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if I'm making sense or if we can go anywhere with that, but I would just it just plopped into my head just to let you
And
know.
we, and when I say it, I am really thinking in the physical world.
Okay.
Yet there is, of course, parts of us that we see it in each other, right? Like we're all a reflection. If this is really my movie, like you're just a reflection anyway. You're all clones of me. I just put you in a different costume today. And so I don't know, it like starts to open up when you can see it in these different ways. This is why if you're pissing me off, it's because it's something that's just triggering in me that I still have to heal. And you know what I mean? It's like we don't always look in these ways. Like, no way, there's Kelly is Kelly. Kelly's not me, but you are, but I'm you, you know? And so, and then we start to really get into that gooey space of consciousness in general that we don't really, I always say understand. We don't really stand within and know and get it. And we're all here to have these different experiences. But if I can trigger in you the experience you're meant to have, cool. Right. But that's a bad thing. But I feel like sometimes that's even the masculine dance is how far can I push you? Right. Before I can get that reaction out of you. And some people really, that's their role. They're looking for that reaction. Others are like looking to withdraw, be in that feminine, want to run away, fight or flight, whatever it may be, not even have that kind of experience. And yet, I think that's part of the masculine feminine for us to start to sit with too. In the experience itself, if I'm always in my masculine, somebody who's more in their feminine may trigger me because I'm like, oh, they never take action. Oh, they're just sitting around. They're not doing what they should. They're unmotivated. And when you start to look at the world in general, how it's designed right now, that's all over business. It's all
Hmm.
over every system and structure. And this is why astrologically we know everything is crumbling. All of the systems that you've given your power to, it's time for you to actually take back your own power and start to see where are we out of harmony with all of these components, all of these pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So yes, I love that. And I agree, it is all over business. Um, I'm gonna say I just recently stepped out of a business program because it was like energy of it, and it was an all-female program, was so masculine.
Mhm.
And the way that they were asking me to do things. So I'm gonna say the before Kelly would probably be like, yeah, yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna do it because I lived like you talked about in finance, ruled by men, right? I've also had jobs where it's been ruled by men. So having to be in my over masculine was the way to survive, right? Um, but yeah, I was just saying I recently stepped out of that program because I can feel that I'm moving more back into my feminine or rediscovering it is really what I want to say.
Or remembering. That's why I
Yes.
say is about remembering because it's not learning or unlearning, it's remembering this wholeness within you.
Yes. And and I think part of that remembrance is really listening to how is my body reacting? Because our bodies are our first antennas. So when I was in there, like every time I went, my body just like literally like recoiled back into itself. And I'm like, this is not feeling good. But but yeah, but I do see all of these structures starting to crumble. Like, and it's happening because people are like taking a step back saying, "No, I'm not I agreed to work 40 hours a week. I'm not going to work 80 hours a week." And I've watched that even in the job that I just left, that triggering that masculine energy because it's like do as I say, right? Does that make
Mhm.
sense what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's so I kind of sit back and I'm kind of watching people start to pull more away or you know like they're wanting to spend more time with their family and they're wanting to like have more time to themselves, but I can see that like the business structure really doing what it can to grab on to grab onto that like no like you're gonna work until you die and every second and every second that you are breathing like I own you right
Yeah.
so yeah I definitely see that.
And you give a great example of being in a feminine world, right? Feminine community, feminine business, and yet heavily masculine. And
Hmm.
I feel that and see it in everything.
Hmm.
So, and I have a friend, and sometimes we kind of talk about, our moms being single moms, and her mom was even more in the masculine industry. And so raising her, it was all about how do you be an independent woman and how do you stand on your own and how do you make it? And you don't even need a man, right? So
Hmm.
then you have that dynamic within a woman who's like, I don't fucking need you. I can do it myself. And women being like, see, I'm right up here getting paid with all the other guys, or, the inequality of pay has been there too. But it's like there's suddenly this confidence, this persona, this energy. And then you add to it, like, oh, well, I have to do well because my parent was a single mom and I have to overachieve. And so now there's like these parts of me that's been this overachiever. I have to be successful. And what was driving me was that forceful masculine energy of I can do it. I can be just as good as a man, if not better. And that's all well and good, except where's the feminine in me? And
Hmm.
that's the part where I'm like, oh, where are you? Where have you been? To be in this world with all these certificates and look at me and all my achievement. But then to meet a woman, then we're just beefing like men, or we're like, look at me and my all my achievements. And yet, where's the heart? Where's the part where if we're breaking down, we can just cry and be held and be supported and be nurtured, and also recognize that for every up there is coming back down. Like I don't need to keep being on this trajectory. And I'll tell you, that's what I see with stock market and finances, and it's always up, up, up. In business, what do they want? Oh, you crushed your sales goal this year, guess what, you need to do even more next year. It never tapers. We never honor the rhythm, right? That natural law of rhythm and the rhythms of Mother Nature. She does it well, right? We know her seasons. We know there's times there's going to be extreme weather. Maybe there's fires and she's going to have rain suddenly show up, but that's not consistent. It's the consistent inconsistencies of life, right? It's expecting the unexpected. It's being able to say, well, if I'm going up, sometimes I'm going to come back down, and
Hmm.
that's okay. And in that, I get to receive, I get to rest, I get to nourish myself, I get to actually just be and not think I have to keep doing. And
Hmm.
and it's so indoctrinated, not just in business, but before that it starts in school, right? And then it's already in our parents, and we're already learning it as little kids. And sometimes just seeing those dynamics where the kids, right? There are more and more, I would say, middle school, high schoolers that are having mental health because they can't keep up and they can't keep pushing. And at some point, they break or they totally give up and they don't even want to be here, right? I mean, we have to find that kind of rhythm to continue.
Going back, and then Blair, I'll ask your questions here in just a second, but I mean, I came from the behavioral health field, and you're absolutely right. There is a higher tick in middle school kids who are literally having mental breakdown, anxiety like an adult would have, like stress, like all of it is being measured. Our little kids are experiencing life as an adult with a nervous system that is not designed at that time to withstand all of that. And you're right, we don't like, and everything, like you said, with sales goals. Oh, you did amazing. Well, here we're gonna double it for next year. And that's the expectation that's being also being placed on these kids. And so for me, when I look at that and I think, oh my gosh, I'm going to say I want all of them to survive it, but some don't. That's just the reality of the world. But like the world right now is what I'm going to say. But the ones that do survive it, it just makes like my heart goes out to them because they're already doing adult, like trying to handle things on on a teenager nervous system. And now they're moving into the adult world. Like it just, yeah, I think like we are in desperate need of harmonization, and I absolutely agree with that. I can talk about mental health stuff like that for days, but I won't. I'm going to ask Blair's questions because they're very good. So Blair is asking, so what does that mean for individuals going forward? And then what's the dynamic of shifting the collective into a more harmonious state from an individual's perspective?
And through the human design evolution, like this is the big peak that we're very close to. We've talked about it. I mean, it was something Raw channeled in that there's this 2027 big shift in consciousness and the chart is shifting. And honestly, well, it's already been 4 years, I think, since I had spoke at a human design conference and shared just how many of the longer range planets were in individuality circuitry. So through the I Ching, through human design, we can start to look at some of these hexagrams are more individual based, some are more tribal, some are more collective. And then when you can look at it through the lens of your own chart, we're all in conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I have a collective channel and a tribal channel. And more of the new humans on the planet, including my kids, I have a set of twins who are currently 11. More than half of their chart is individual circuitry. So what does that mean? They are not here to fit the systems. They're here to break them down.
Mm-hmm.
And like that gives me goosebumps because as much as individuality is here to be and here to be different, the collective wants you to just get in line and be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you already have this conflict of, well, shoot, like if I'm collective, I want to help the greater good and I need to sacrifice myself. Well, individuals are going to not want to sacrifice themselves, right? They're going to want to get rid of the system because they're saying your system's broken. And I already saw this. I've already seen it with my kids. Like they went to Montessori and got kicked out because they were showing what is missing, what is wrong, what isn't working, and they didn't want to see it. And they were like, it's your kids, they're the problem. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really individual circuitry at best. And so I bring this up because, and let's just even see where, because Uranus has been like Uranus is doing some great individual stuff. So it was in, it's just been in different gates that are all individuality. We have Pluto that just left some of the individuality and is now a little bit more collective, but we've had planets in the last few years, each of them having big impacts where it is affecting the whole of humanity. Because if there's a collective energy that we've all been stuck in, and now we have a huge planet that's going to disrupt or bring transformation in some way, and it's like blasting light in the way of being you, being unique, being authentic, being individual, here to break down the status quo, that's what we're all doing. There's parts of us that are in this conflict of like, I can't just do what the collective wants me to. And really to me, this is the part for as the individual, what are you here to bring? And how is your light and your energy here to ripple into the collective to show them how you're a canvas for creation and so are they. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like this gets me to kind of like Jesus energy too, where he
Hey, bring
was
it.
that same reflection. He
Mhm.
wasn't like, look at me and all the things I can do. He was like, look at what I can do because you can too. And
Mhm.
that individuality is such a big part of masculine and feminine now. Now you're looking at, okay, I'm here to be different. But I also see how the collective pulled me into this masculine.
Mhm.
And now, as women, it's time for us to recognize my feminine is actually more powerful than that. Right. And so this is the part where I think of it in terms of the law of gender is not necessarily about sex and the gender of male or female, but this masculine and feminine that's in everything, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, everything has all. And so sexually you think of, okay, you've got the man. And I will tell you, what's the one thing a young guy, if they ever took Viagra, what do they complain about? How it hurts because they're stuck in hard mode and it doesn't turn off. Like, to me, that's where we've been on the planet. Like, we're literally all walking around with hard ons and it freaking hurts. And we're like, why am I still doing this? Right? The feminine is just sitting and just waiting to receive. And in the birthing process, even, right? I was just being in my pregnancy, growing children, because even having twins, right? Like growing babies inside of me. Was I pushing for 9 months? God, no. Like that would have been exhausting. And yet, that's what we're doing in our world. We're just trying to penetrate anything and everything. We're trying to push our energy, our knowing, our sales pitch, like everything is in forceful penetration mode. And so, if individually you're starting to go, whew, I don't want to walk around with a heart on anymore. I don't want to try and birth a baby by pushing for 9 months. I'm just going to wait until that moment when everything's ready to happen. You get to now individually start to say, wow, I need to just be. I need to rest. I need to sit back and find that harmony within yourself. And then you're already going to start to be that vessel to show others around you how it's possible for them. And that dynamic is what impacts the whole, right? Because collectively, we've got to all reset. And so I'm speaking to us as women, but I see it too with men who are hardcore, like warriors.
Mhm.
And yet, when are they going to allow themselves to retreat? And some do. I mean, it's really fascinating because the dynamic of a male, most of the time they go exert themselves and then they just go be in their cave the rest of the day. And us women are like, yo, life still happens. Like, I need your support, or you still have other work to do. You don't get to just suddenly go sit around. But that's kind of how they nurture themselves, right? That is how they go rest. And yet there's this dance too of men are here to be vulnerable and emotional and really connect to that heart level and not just wear the armor all the time. And so I feel like this is the dance that individually we help our partners, we help those we're in relationship with, whether it's your husband or your spouse or your friend or your mom or your dad or your kids or whoever. This is what we're helping. Like, to even bring awareness to, wow, you're really pushing. We thought
Mhm.
about taking a break, and we're not going into fix it mode because, oh my God, that's just a whole other masculine thing that all of us do, men and women. But how are we just holding each other and helping to shift and be the ripple?
It's interesting. My son, he's 20 and he has a lot of individual circuitry in his chart. But it's interesting, as you were talking, I've actually have been watching this the last couple of weeks because as of today, my son has like a very important interview. And it's funny because his aunt, very masculine, push, 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 push. And it's interesting that this is his aunt. And I mean, like I said before, I could relate to that, but now I've taken a step back. But I'm watching the dynamic of this and the individual circuitry in his chart actually like being expressed. And he has conversations with me. Oh, and like it's almost like I can see the conflict in it because, the aunt is pushing him, you have to do this, you got to be this, you got to be this. And then he comes back and he goes, but I don't want to do that. Like that's not something I want to do. And so I asked him, I said, well, what is it that you want to do? And like he kind of lays it out. And I'm bringing this up because I think this is I think this, like children that are coming in, this is the energy they're bringing, right? They're totally showing us this new way of being, which is incredible. And he's like, I don't want to work my ass off. And he goes, I don't believe that I have to. He's like, I believe that I can be like financially sustainable without having to like break my neck. And so honestly, he was actually here at, working with his aunt on this interview, and I could hear them getting into it about, about that energy. And she's like, this is the only way to be. Like, this is the way you need to be. And I love my son because he's all, nah, you know. And you can hear them, like I could hear them bickering is what it was. But I sat back and I was like, this is incredible because, like I said, the children coming in, just like your children, right? They're the ones that are coming in to kind of be the wrecking ball of that masculine energy.
The
And
the wrecking ball of society and norms. You know what I mean?
yes. And I'm not gonna lie, I sat back on the couch and listened, and I would like I was very proud of him. Instead of saying, okay, okay, like I'm gonna conform, like you said, how the collective wants us to, he was like taking a step back and he was like, hell no, I'm not gonna do that, So it was pretty impressive, but I really feel that, like I said, like kind of that's the new flow of like that new wave of children that are coming in are here to show us that.
Yes.
And
And
uh
and my hope is that through this conversation, we can start to see where we're actually inhibiting their ability to do that. And
mhm,
we're limiting them with our own beliefs and our own fear and our own, but this is how the world works. And you have to get a job and you're not just going to make money sitting around. And all the things that our grandparents, great grandparents, and our parents, and then what we're now saying, it is the cycle of all that was. That is what we have to release because it's time for what is. And I
mhm,
truly believe they're going to help raise consciousness by releasing all of this old. And that may mean some of the old consciousness will literally die off.
mhm.
Human systems, processes, ways of doing and being, because it's time for us to welcome that they're going to show us there's an entirely new way that's more effective, more efficient, things we can't even fathom because it's not just science. Science hasn't figured it out, but it's we haven't allowed it to show up and they're here to bring it.
Yes, yes. And that sounds so empowering. I love it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, my son is like 20, and like I kind of sit back and, and like I fall in sometimes into that old conditioning, and he's like sitting there and he's like, Mom, there's such a more efficient way to do that. And I'm like, and then of course I'm like, well, how? And then he shows me and I'm like, oh, that was so simple. But I do want to read is it Leah or Lee? I just want to make sure that I'm getting your name right. Um, I'm guessing it's Leah. But anyways, okay, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. So she said that she is a self-project Leah. Perfect. Okay, thanks, Leah. That she is a self-projected projector with a left angle cross of defiance. And she said, this is the story of my life. So I'm guessing the mask being pushed into the masculine, right? And she said, I can't wait until others embrace this energy in their own unique ways. First of all, Leah, I am a splenic projector. So you and I are both right there in that energy of not wanting to push, because it literally like knocks us on our butts because of our projected or I'm all because of our lack of energy is what it is.
Well, and it's not so much lack of energy as much as because we can just feel everyone else's energy.
Mhm.
And I'm an emotional projector. And it's kind of interesting because this is my dance, I think. Like this is my chart. So I either lived in my head, so total CPA, masculine world, or like I had to learn to move down into my willpower and my emotions. But knowing that Leah is self-projected, you either have, any of this and you feel all of this, which is a lot. That's where the sacral energy is. That is that energy for, I just want to say, like, for generators, yes, it feels like it's a push, but it's not because it's responsive. And
Mhm.
even that's the dance. Like to me, this is where it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're a generator, if your sacral has the energy and it lights up and it's responding, it's ready to say yes, it's ready to take action. But when it's not, it's more in the feminine. And that's okay. It's waiting. It doesn't have the energy. It's going to pull back. It's a no. And so it's these ways of seeing how energy works, knowing, yes, I've got these charts and I've got all these parts and I can feel people, but then how do you respond with it? Do we as projectors get to sit back and wait? Because that's what we're supposed to do. And yet there's something in us because we feel the collective, we feel everyone else's energy that has us pushing and forcing and being like, I know, and I can help you. And it just repels people more, right? So to me, it's the masculine, the feminine is all of these pieces. And really, I look at the Hermetic principles. I look at them kind of, even though the way they kind of share them, I see them in reverse tied to chakras. So the law of gender is really tied more into that root piece because there is a lot of safety and security and feeling grounded and safe in this body or on this planet. And if there are parts of us where we don't feel safe, what's your lead? Where do you go? Where do you start from? What energetically did you learn to defend yourself and protect yourself? Did you learn to just push forward? Did you learn to like take the ropes and go make it happen? You know, and think of the things that our families say or our teachers said that were like, you need to make something out of yourself. You need to go make it happen. And then when you layer it with these human design pieces where you're like, oh shit, well, three of us right now, we're all projectors. We're not supposed to ever take the ropes and just go
Right.
make shit happen. We're to wait and observe and have that recognition and that invitation come through so that it is literally that moment of creation, right?
Right.
Male and female, whether you want to say it's like, you know, the sexual kind of aspect of like it's connecting and you're birthing a seed that's going to grow into a baby or an idea or book or whatever it is. That's what we need. We don't
Mhm.
want someone to just overpower us and then we're not here to overpower them. And I feel like these are the things we've been conditioned in. We learned, we're unlearning, and now I'm here to share like you have absolute permission to remember your way. And the parts that don't work, throw it out because you're here to recreate and allow these unique individual energies to come through. Have even children like be your teacher and show you how to have fun again and how to like really just be instead of doing and thinking we have to constantly achieve.
Right. You know, um, like I said, I stepped away from my job because it was very masculine, very pushing all the time. I mean, I worked in crisis, of course it was. But like, um, the funny thing that I said when I stepped away, I had told one of my friends, I said, you know what? I'm like, I just want to be a projector. I want to be my projector self. I want to rest. I want to honor my rest cycles. I want to be invited in because I know that's when my energy really flows like the way that it's supposed to. And so that's I'm going to tell you that is like the flow that I'm going to say that I'm trying to fit in because I've been in that world for so long of pushing, pushing, pushing. And so now I'm learning how to be a projector. I'm deconditioning all of this energy that was never mine that I thought was. And so, but I also do believe that even despite being a projector, like you brought up generators, like all types are having to decondition to honestly respond in the right ways because I think that we have been conditioned to mostly respond in all the wrong ways, which is that achievement, like, the plaques that are on the wall, like, my idea of success is what the collective's idea of success is, which we all know is bullshit because that's not true. And so I love the way that you've been talking about this and the way um, that you've been sharing this because I almost feel like it's a permission for us to be like, well, wait, it is okay for us to come back into that remembrance and say no to that pushing and that hustling. And if it doesn't feel good to me, then it's probably not. You know what I mean? So, um, I love what you're sharing here today. It's very impactful. So I just wanted to share that with you. Um, Leah says, I call myself the Johnny Appleseed of knowledge. I collect the seeds, sprinkle them out wherever I go, and and I think that's supposed to say, and hope I won't be around and whole I'm sorry. And then it's I won't be around all the time to see them take root and grow. I know that I've shared information and wisdom for people to use in the way they wish. I love that, Leah. That's very projector because that's that is exactly how we feel. You're like, I will share it. It will land on whoever it needs to land, and that's okay that I don't see the results of it. And I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate with that. And for me, it's like I really see it and have seen it in a past life. And it's been like a really impactful piece for me to always go back to because I've been creator in many lifetimes. And so I get that I do relate more with the masculine and have a lot of male clients even because I can meet them where they are and but that could be intimidating to women. And so it's just this dance of who am I? But as creator, there's also that part of knowing you're here to create, or I was here to create and not know where it goes. And that's really hard in this lifetime, knowing I am the projector and I really want to see it and know how it made impact and get recognition. And it's the thing that I can say where we're headed on the planet, where we have not been. I can really see we're not ever at the Siddhic level in the Gene Keys, which is like the guru masterful level. We're not even close. And I don't think we're very close in a lot of the line 5, well, even 4, 5, and 6 aspects. So whether you have some of those pieces, and I know Leah said she's a left angle cross, so she's a 5 or a 6 consciously, but a lot of those have been distorted. So a lot of those are going to be conditioned ways, right? Like especially line 5s, you're already in the projection field where everything is like, it feels like it's bombarding you. And yet you are the Jedi who gets to cut through it and be like, no, this is how it is. I take your energy and I raise it higher. And that's what's really shifting because that's where we start achieving these or reaching these higher levels of consciousness and growing inside of ourselves. And we just haven't seen it. We think there's philanthropic giving, but I'll tell you the way our system's designed and having seen it and been on boards and done nonprofit work, it's like it is not from the heart space. It is not truly of this highest level that is to seed the whole for where we're headed. So all of it is shifting. And it's time for us to recognize we're not here to always know what we're birthing and where it's going to go. Right. And to me, that's like the beauty of the line 1s and moving through the 2s and 3s. It's like there's something being birthed and I'm going to have to hand it off, which is hard because if you think of it as a child, if I were literally to birth a child and be like, okay, Kelly, here, raise this child now and not know where it's going to go, but now I can let that child flourish how it's meant to. Like to me, that's the same as the book or the course or this magical process or system that we're trying to birth right now. We're not always meant to know where it's going to go or how it's going to move, but allowing it to birth the way that it's meant to, we suck at that. I like immediately I'm thinking this is why everyone patents their shit because they're like, this is mine and you can't have it and blah blah blah. Like that's hoarding. That's not saying, wow, be free, little bird, and fly where you're gonna go and become something else and grow into whatever that's going to actually help grow the collective, shift the collective. And so I think in terms of the systems that are crumbling, that's why they have to. They were already created on a very rocky foundation, heavily masculine, but heavily fear-based, lack, but then the greed and the control and all those low vibrational energies. And so when I think of being the projector here to hold the energies and the grids, that's already me being in the feminine. I don't really know exactly how it's supposed to go. I just know I'm here to be the disruptor. I'm here as the cross of planning, that as much as everyone talks about what it means and what it like it never resonated, but I'm here to ensure that it ends. Like these old things, they're done. And so I think that's scary for a lot of people because they're afraid of what was will be no longer. And yet I'm excited for what we can all finally come together and create in this evolutionary way where it's not just rigid, right? Rigidity is still masculine. We need the flow, we need the evolution, we need the spirals of life to come through where even as we're building this new system, it's going to change in the future because more of these children are going to come in and be like, what were those old people doing? Like, this doesn't work, throw it out. And, that's to me is part of creation, not just from that beginning point, but the evolutionary process of it all. And we don't know how to do that. And I don't know if our Atlantean and Lemurian times quite knew that either, right? Like we always create in the moment, and some of us get very stuck in how we think it should be. But when we can also allow the feminine to just hold creation and love it for whatever it is, then it can flourish and grow into what it's meant to be.
Yes, I love it. I agree. And coming from the side of being a disruptor, yeah, I totally get that. And I'm on board with you. I listen to like I've watched a lot. I've listened to people like I even friends, family, talking about what's going on right now. And I'm like, they all think that I'm crazy because I'm like, yes, I'm like, this is happening. But it goes back to what you're saying is as projectors, we do see the big picture in general. We may not know how it's going to get there, but we have an idea of what it can be like when we literally destroy all of these structures and these systems to have the ability to create and build in a way that is beautiful, that is in flow, that is in harmonies, that literally harmonizes both masculine and feminine energy, that moves with the rhythm of, just of that flow. Like I am talking about it, and talking about it right now is giving me chills because it can be so beautiful. And I feel, and I love your opinion on this, but like I feel that if we can let go of the fear of what is unknown to hold on to all, because that's what we're doing. That fear is really like, and of course, there's stuff that's happening to amplify the fear, but it's like literally squeezing onto it so tight. And it's almost like we're holding onto it with our eyes like this, that we don't have the opportunity to see what can be, if that makes sense. And it sucks in my opinion when awful things happen, but I think that also I can kind of take a step back, and I'm gonna guess you and Leah because we're projectors, that like we can see it from a wider lens of going, yeah, it sucks right now, but it needs to suck for us to like you said, to birth this beautiful thing and to just bring it up and out into the open, and then allow the feminine to take over, to create it into what it's meant to be. And so I'm right there with you, and I could feel your passion when you were talking about it. I was like, yes. But yeah, and it is harmony, right? It is just finding that beautiful dance in flow. Blair said it's scary because sometimes people find security there, and I agree with that. But most of the current structures are not about what is in the best interest of many. Most systems are self-serving for just a few. Eventually, we get to the point, no matter what comes next, it has, and I'm on an HAS capital, to be better than the old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're clinging to something, and this is what I've been feeling, and this is what's shifting in the chart, even, we're not meant to come from logic anymore, which is really like, that's hard for people because they love to logic through everything,
Mhm.
right? And guess what? Your logic don't work in emotional world. Like you can't logic emotions. And so that's like a whole new, if you're talking, whoa, men, women, we're all stuck in that world. And now you're meant to move into emotional energy. You're going to kick and scream and fight it and resist it and make it so much harder than it is. And I feel like people are there and we still have our systems. They haven't really completely crumbled, but I also think there's a lot of facades. I think part of our consciousness is actually holding the veil for the belief that a lot of these things are still in place when I don't think they are. And that's the part where then we go to, but what will I do? And what if I have no money? And what if I can't pay my bills? And then what if I'm on the street? And like, that's the nature of how our systems were designed anyway, to keep us in fear, because we're constantly like trying to get to this space. But my perspective from being in the financial arena didn't matter if you were up here or down here. You're dealing with the same shit. I don't care if you're a trust fund kid or you're a homeless person. You both don't know your purpose. You both aren't seen for what you can contribute. You don't know what to do because everyone's like, oh, you have money. You're a piece of shit. Oh, you don't have money. You're a piece of shit. So, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, like, well, then where am I? And all of that's part of the illusion because you're actually not any of that, right? We're so much more from within our cells, within our energetic field, our aura, and our connection to source. And right now, the greatest war is, how do I get back to that connection, my source connection, not the distorted connections? And there's a lot of healers and light workers and everybody who's really anybody. They're all part of a distorted way of just trying to suck in your energy and take your life force and take your light and keep you stuck in the suffering and this forgetfulness. And so
Mhm.
if we get to come back into ourself, the true ascension process is not us going up and out. It's
Mhm.
allowing it to come into the body. And so if you start to realize you're very rigid and you're stuck and you've given all your power, and really I want to take it back to that first chakra, you're giving all of your sense of safety and security to a system, then that's exactly what you're going to have to let the intuition and the flow back in and the surrender aspects of the feminine to allow you to trust again, to be held, to remember that you being you is actually more than any of the stuff,
Mhm.
and that you don't have to rely on the systems. And when the systems start to crumble, you're actually like, cool. Like you really are watching the movie and you're like enjoying your popcorn. And you're like, huh. And to me, I feel like we've all probably had those moments and those dance pieces of, like I think of even the pandemic, there wasn't as much shift for me because I already knew, right? That fear of the unknown, but also this is gate 57, the most intuitive energy. This is wind over wind in the hexagrams. This is like the wind can come and it can hurl and it can destroy, but it also can just bring peace and allow you to know. And so in that moment of knowing, you're already trusting. You already
Yep.
know deeply, you're held, you're supported. You don't even need to worry. And so it's like that, right? And if we're really in fear and now all of a sudden you're kind of moving through into this new dynamic of like, oh God, I don't know how to trust and I don't know how to let go. And I still worry about my kids who aren't even at home. And you know what I mean? Like when you're constantly worrying, you're just stirring more of that energy. And it's time to just lean in and trust. And if there's emotions that come through, let it, it's going to heal you.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So I was the same way in the pandemic. It was kind of like the pandemic hit and other than hearing about it, I like not, in all honesty, not much of my life had changed. Um, and I, and and there were moments that I'd wake up and I'm like, I do not feel fearful about this. Is there something wrong with me, right? Because everybody around me was spiraling in such fear mode. But like, I'm gonna go back to like being the projector of holding the grid. I realized that that was part of what my role was to hold that space and to hold that grid to start to kind of diffuse that fear of we're resetting things like this is how it is expressed in it through humanity. Like that's just being human, is it being expressed in this way, but knowing that it really like it to me it was the start of us moving towards this new beautiful space. And yeah, I'm hearing everything that you're saying. Jen said, I enjoy sitting back and watching the tower fall because I know great things are coming. Heck yeah. Yes, Jen. Yes. So this has been so much fun to talk with you. Because a lot of the stuff that you're saying, like about the distortion and everything, I'm like, I know exactly what you're meaning. Like,
Mm.
there's a lot of distortion that is happening, and I do see it I hate to say, in the spiritual community. It's a lot of noise, and I do feel that we are moving back. The only way that I can describe it is back to the original way of being, where there is a greater cause, not these individual, I'm gonna say these individual causes of people saying, well, you need this and you need that. No, it's true. You're right. I do 100% agree. It's about coming back to source, and
Mhm.
that direct connection, and not all of these distractions that we think we have to go through. We think we have to go through A and B before we can get to there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And sadly, this all started to come in because Atlantis fell.
Mhm.
And so there were openings for other energies to come in. And the easiest way was through that mental sphere, through that spiritual connection. And so, whether it was through church aspects or healers in general, if you want to say the priests and the priestesses and all the ones that like weren't part of religion, but we just became more open to distortion and noise. And I think, as much as, and I grapple with this all the time, as much as, these are the things where we're like, oh, why? And we don't want this, and it's negative and it's bad. There is no negative, there is no bad. It's finding that neutrality of not being triggered by it, but also realizing it was the exact thing we needed to help us remember, to force us into this space of remembrance, and to start kicking our own asses into gear, in the sense of like, I would say part of that masculine of like, it's time to be like, no more, and that is an important piece, that there are the right timing when the feminine has sat and the timing has waited and the winds have changed. There's that moment when now you got to take the action. And
Mhm.
I think, as much as our world was kind of distortedly created in all of the masculine, I think being asleep, most of us humans were in the feminine, and we felt like we're too weak, or thinking feminine is weak when it's not, but feeling like, oh, we're too weak. Who am I to make a change? And I can't change the system. And I think the charge of new spiritual beings coming into bodies and shifting things on the planet, and the new kids, and just the energies that play, individuality here to shatter the collective, all of that is what's leading us this charge, getting us this momentum to finally say no more. And even if I'm afraid, I can't, there's something in me that's like, I can't not be afraid anymore. Just like when you hit that rock bottom where you're like, okay, something has to give. I can't do this anymore. And there's like that fire that literally comes through. Well, to me, that's the six gang lines of the one, the creative force, right? There's a fire that starts to ignite. And to me, if we want to equate that, yes, the fire is going to turn us into that masculine push to make shit happen. But that's also the fire within, that you're remembering you're the light. and it's
Mhm.
time to just let the light come. And you don't even have to push and charge like a warrior so much as if you and I and all of us just start to ignite our fire together, how bright are we? Right. And,
Right.
and I have many visions. I've done some energy work where it happens where we start to shift in such a way that we become the sun, right? We match our brother or sister because I see that the sun is like almost like a force field. It looks like it's going to burn you, but when you can match its frequency, you can enter it and probably go live with all the inhabitants and the people there and stuff. So I just see it as we could finally ignite and be as
Oh,
bright as the sun together.
oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Um, I know that that the people that are here today, they put a lot in the chat. Is there anything, and I just want to open it up to you guys, is there anything, I'm sorry, you ladies, who have anything else that you questions or comments that you want to make? And again, you could put them in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, you are more than welcome to do that. I just want to be able to also offer you a voice as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The only comment I had, and it's not really, it's just an observation, because I was a teacher for, I don't know, 9 years, a little over 9 years. My mom was also a teacher, so I was around school and kids for a long time. And I don't know how to describe it other than it, to me, it feels like a spark of youth, which is, the young ones come in and as, at least for me, I figured that I understood that the younger generations have a different, it's almost like they're different parts of their brain operate, but I think, in human design it can be translating to the gates and the combination or whatever. But they have solutions for problems that we of course have had for a long time. And when I heard you talking about that, on some level, this is just my humanness coming in. It was a little sad because I have been very aware of that for a very long time. And a lot of the stuff is still requiring fixing, like the stuff that I imagined would have been resolved, even with, honestly, I think they're millennials, like the ones that are born around 95. Um, I had so many of those students that were just like crazy, brilliant, and so in tune with the energies. They didn't know it, right? But they were so in tune with it. I know that they have the solutions in there, but I haven't seen like massive, societal change. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about that other than it's it's almost like bringing me to exhaustion because it's like, okay, that stuff has not, they haven't come out with these magical things that I sensed were there. I'm just, I'm like, I'm ready for it to happen, but now I have to kind of let go of that hope in a way.
No, keep holding the energy for it, right?
Mhm.
Keep like, and that's what most of us are doing. Hold the enthusiasm for it. I think why it hasn't happened is because the systems won't let it happen. They don't want to fix for most things. They don't want to cure for things. You can't make money off of that.
Mhm. And well, and two, if they came up with solutions, because like I said, I came from the crisis system, like healthcare. There's so many band-aids, and I would sit in meetings going, "There is a solution for this. Like, why are we just band-aiding it?" To the point where I was told that I couldn't talk in meetings anymore, especially with leadership. But it like the systems have been designed to be band-aids and not allow that energy to come forward. But I agree with you, Alana. I think if we um if we continue to hold that space, I do feel that I, it switched from feel to know. Actually, I do know that it will start to come out. I I will, and this is my belief, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that we didn't see it prior because we aren't in the energy that we are now. And this energy is an energy that's truthfully, it may not actually like feel like it, but is supportive of those brilliant ideas and that way of making positive change to come out. But remember, we have to break down. We've got to break down what was and the idea that we're fixing it, but we're really putting a band-aid on it for those moments and those opportunities to really come out. And I feel like I'm excited because I do feel like that's where we are. And I think as human beings, we've been conditioned to want instant gratification, like we want it now. And I'm not saying that, Blair, that's your expectation. I'm just saying in generally in the collective, like we think that it has to happen now. But I think it goes back to what you said, Alana, is about birthing that creation and allowing it to come forward. And I do feel like that's where we are. We just, we've got to move. We really have to move through this. And it's coming. I know. I'm like, I know it's coming. And it may not all happen in my lifetime, but I do have hope that it'll happen in my son's lifetime, in your children's lifetime. It's coming, and they're going to be the creators. They're going to be the ones holding that energy and and birthing and like honestly birthing it.
Birthing it when the timing's right. And unfortunately, our society is so in the moment, wants the results right now, like you're saying. And yet maybe, Blair, part of your role was to foster even that the ideas could come forth, because I don't know that that happens in all school districts and whatnot. It's like allowing that to have it, and then at some point maybe it's just like we all kind of have certain things. It's, I guess, like freezing your embryos, like for later when the time's right, and then you're like, oh, like it's almost like that we can just continue to hold the space, that when some of these facets end, some of these processes and systems end, then the space is finally right for spirit and for the collective to go, oh my gosh, we need this, and that kid to go, hey, I can do this now. And that all of a sudden we all actually are energetically allowing that birth to finally happen.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Did you, I was just going to ask Blair if there was anything else that you wanted to say.
No, the only thing I was going to say is I definitely can sense that it's just the general energies when I was teaching. I agree that it was not collectively preparing the world, humans, I guess, to have this brink of, which I think we've been touching on, getting to that point where you can no longer tolerate what was. And even though those kids were in tune with it as young as they were, they hadn't reached a place where in society, meaning an age, right, where in society that people were receptive to them. And I think we are all kind of getting to that point where we're letting go of the expectations of what is required to be able to get to that place, to be receptive to the newness, the new way. And so yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see even what that group does. But teaching, I taught long enough to know that every generation that comes in, they all have that. Like, so it's new things that are affected and new ways of looking at things, and it can be just so healing for everybody if we just stay kind of focused on going where we're best suited. And I don't mean in the way that like somebody tells you that you're suited, just in the way that is a right fit for you. So I'm hopeful in that way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And
Yeah.
the last thing that you just said, it kind of sparked you said is something along the lines that makes me think of like when we then get shut down. So I think all generations, all kids, right? Because they're the closest thing to God. And then, depending on how it's fostered or where they're allowed to let their creations expand or their ideas, at some point it's shut down. And that's where each of us here now, we're addressing where we felt shut down in our life. And then we're realizing that wasn't our truth. And that's what we have to shift. And so I think each generation, each of that spark that the children brought, and then they would get shut down, each generation's making it a little further, and I just see it even in the twins. Like my husband's always amazed because they will speak to grandpa in ways that my dad's like, whoa, you did not talk to my dad that way. I would have got smacked. And they just say it like it is. And they're like, no, grandpa. And they call it out and they're saying, stop, grandpa, or you don't get to say that. And it's like, it triggers in us like, whoa, what, like our kids, like you're a kid, you're not supposed to. But the reality is they're not getting shut down. And they're actually here to not necessarily shut down grandpa, but just show grandpa, like, you don't get to do this. This isn't okay. And I feel like that's, you know what I mean? Like each new generation, each kid's coming through. Oh my gosh, I get so exciting. It kind of reminds me of even like in Star Wars when you saw the little kids like learning to be Jedis. It's like that. Like we're helping to finally foster Jesus embodied in all the children, that they all have their gifts and we're all helping them to honor them and share them and not shut them down anymore. And I think that's only going to spark the consciousness. We'll get there when more of us adults release and let go of our own inhibitions and limitations, that we see the expansiveness, the possibility, which then allows them to actually live it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I love this. Okay. So Leah has two comments. And Blair just said she totally agrees. So I love it. So Leah's first comment is, I just want to say thank you to you both and to everyone else deconditioning and helping to create a new paradigm for all the future generations, all sentient beings, and Mother Earth. Thank
Mm.
you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Leah. And then she also said, it's like we're in a phase of gathering the fuel to build the pyre. Is that, did I say that right? Can you see that? So we are ready for the sparks that will ignite the fire of our souls.
Yeah.
Mm.
And to me, that's the individuality. That's
Mhm.
the spark of creation. That's why the gate one is part of individual circuitry. It's here to really ignite from your heart center, from your identity, from being authentic, allowing you to ignite in others this ability to be authentic, to be expressed, to be heard, to be seen, and share your wisdom in your unique way. And that we don't have to just, I don't know, all put on the same costume and like robotically move through the day and be the same, because we're not.
Yeah, none of us are the same
Mhm.
at all. There is nothing the same about us. Um, Oh, I love our conversation. So I do want to go. You so graciously have offered up a gift for donation for our participants to donate on. Um, just so everyone knows, all donations, 100% of it goes to the She Rises Foundation. It is to provide scholarships at like education, coaching, business startups, whatever it is that they need. I don't want finances to ever be an issue, and it's our way of giving back. I see it as like a paying it forward and for it to keep going, because if we can help them, then whatever their gift is will then continue to help and it will continue to ripple out. So, like I said, 100% of the proceeds, all of it goes to that foundation for that. And you have provided a gift. It's called Journey Through the Seven Universal Laws, it also known as the Hermetic Principles. Would you like to speak more on that so they know what they're getting?
Yes. Yes. So this is a 30-minute video really diving into the Hermetic principles or the universal laws, the seven of them, and how I see they connect to each chakra. So really just explaining and going through them. And the reason that I created this was because I know that I see how everything is seeded through prosperity, and my business is prosperity alignment. And so it's like, how does this tie to money, and how does this tie to just your being the energy of prosperity? And each of these laws, when we can really embody them and know how they move through us and can be activated. So that's what this gift is.
I love it. Thank you so much for offering such a generous gift. And everyone, you can find it in her speaker center. All of her information is there, her bio, all of her links, and including this gift for donation can be found in her speaker center. So, Alana, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I really did enjoy our conversation. I was actually sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I could talk to this girl forever. But we do have stuff we have to do. So, thank you so much for, coming on here, sharing your very, very insightful wisdom and knowledge. So grateful that you took the time to share that with the people that are here and everybody that will be catching the replay on this platform. Um, and everybody that showed up today, great questions and interaction. It really helped flow with the conversation. It was very beautiful and enlightening. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have to come back.
Yeah, this was so much fun. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, ladies on the call, and all of you who are watching in replay mode. And yeah, I just love opening up the conversation, or at least I also know I'm a muse. So there's just something that like usually sparks in someone or ignites in them some sort of remembrance or a new activation that allows them to go in a different direction. So however you can really connect in to recognize in yourself these dynamics of the masculine and the feminine, and to me make it as multifaceted as a crystal or a diamond, right? Like there's not just, oh, how do I show up every day, but you can start to break it down even in your relationships. Like, and I look at it as energetic defenses too. You know, there's times when we're fight, but sometimes we're flight. And so how are we in the masculine versus the feminine when we're with a coworker or our spouse or our kids, or even with ourself, or where are we pushing in business rather than waiting, or we're constantly thinking we need to push and make things happen or make all these calls. And is it a should, you know, and is it that like, oh, I should because something mentally is causing you to think you're not good enough, or, you know, that you're lazy otherwise, or whatever it may be. There's so many facets to this law and this principle for us to harmonize. But ultimately, just remember, you're amazing, you're incredible. You chose this crazy lifetime to experience all the goodness of what it has to offer, you know?
Yes. And thank you. And on that note, we're going to leave it on that note. And just again, everybody here, Alana, everybody who watches the replay, so much love and gratitude from my heart to all of yours. And we will be back next week doing it all over again. So thank you, everyone, and take care.